Guess how many people can speak 18 words per second? I feel like when you ask some crazy question that no one has the answer to, all it does, it sets you apart from the audience. It's like, I have the answer, right? So I'm smarter than you. Well, why do I want to set myself apart from anyone? One of the things I tell everyone who speaks publicly, or even if it's on a podcast or a media interview one-on-one, I say you want to be along with them. You want to talk with them, not to them, you with them. Join them. Don't set yourself apart. And asking these crazy questions and showing that you're smarter than they are just means that you are setting yourself apart.
I had an eye-opening conversation with David Goldberg, one of the top speaking and presentation delivery coaches in the world. And you are going to learn a lot in this podcast episode about how you communicate and how you can sound better and cause a greater impact. David Goldberg is a high-stakes communication advisor who, together with his team, has helped more than 10,000 people, including CEOs, entrepreneurs, voice actors, athletes, politicians, podcasters, celebrities, and authors come across as more credible and influential. His work combines speaking skills development with guidance on presentation setups, elevating both performance and audience perception. Check this out.
Who is David Goldberg by David himself? Welcome to the show.
Carlos, great to be here. I'm a proud dad of 2 boys, 14 and 17. I'm a proud owner of 2 English bulldogs who snore louder than anything else in the world. And I'm the proud owner of a business called 𝐃𝐚𝐯 Studio. I've had this business for 36 years. Oh my goodness. And 𝐊𝐞𝐲studio.com makes sure that smart people come across smart when they're in front of an audience. That's what we do. Carlos, over the 36 years, I worked with so many, 10,000 actually at this point, just over 10,000 people who are way smarter than I am, but they don't come across as smart when they are in front of an audience. They don't speak well. They're nervous in front of the microphone or the camera. They don't look good on Zoom. And I feel terrible for them because they diminish or weaken even their professional image. My job, my business's job, is to go in there and make sure that they come across looking and sounding fabulous. And that's what we do.
That's awesome. That's amazing. I love that. And actually, you had a profound impact on me the first time we met in the mastermind. And the reason you had an impact, because you're an expert, a worldwide expert on what you do. And people in the meeting were just like trying to compete to see who knows more about the subject. And you were so polite, so gentle. I mean, you taught people, you gave advice, what people do best. And you're just like so conscious about the impact that you're doing. And people are not realizing how good that was because they're trying to show up. And I found this is so interesting because you have such a nice and positive attitude and posture on this. But then when we talked later on, we do like one-on-one networking, get to know each other. You gave me some advices, just an example in a particular scenario that you're supporting an executive indirectly. And please tell this story. This is just like worth gold. And I started using that to myself, and I'm starting giving this advice. And I say, I learned with one of the best, if not the best, voice presentation speaking coach in the world. And in that particular case, I give you these 2 advices that I received from him, and they start using it, and they start changing automatically. So I definitely owe you royalties. I don't know exactly how I would pay you on this, but this is just amazing. And the reason I found this interesting is that people don't know what they don't know. And that is one thing that I believe people are not aware when they are making mistakes and failing. So back to you. I definitely want to hear that story. If you're so generous and kind to tell us the story and tell me again this story, and what did you do and the results that you have with this executive?
Yeah, it is a great story. And I feel like I should just give one other story first to put everything in context. It's taken me, of my 36 years, it took me 35 and a half years to come up with an analogy that really explains better what I do. And like you're right, as you said, Carlos, people are unaware of their shortcomings. So the analogy is this, and it's so good. Imagine you're at home, you're watching TV. All the advertisements are on. One advertisement comes on TV, and it's a low budget ad. You know it immediately. Right off the bat, you know that something is not quality, something is missing. And I believe it comes from 5 different areas, 5 different elements are lacking, or at least one of them is lacking. Sound quality could be lacking. The way the person speaks could be lacking. The lighting, the body language of the people on screen, and the whole visual appearance, how everything looks. And as soon as one or more of those 5 are off, even a little bit, that company looks like a low budget ad. And you know what you do when you see a low budget ad, you blow off that company. So now, to go to your example, I work with all of these CEOs and politicians and authors, celebrities, athletes. Every day is 5 people a day on average right now. And they are unaware of those 5 things. I get on Zoom with someone who is so smart, but the lighting is way off, or their sound quality sounds terrible. And they have as I said before, they've weakened their professional image. So here's the story, everyone, that Carlos wanted me to share. There's a consultant down in the Washington, D.C. area who I've worked with for 15 or 20 years. And they're two women who help CEOs in their consulting business. Anyway, they called me once and said, David, you need to help someone right away. The CEO of this company is pitching a startup idea to investors. He's nervous. He has too much content to get through. He only has 3 minutes to make the pitch. He's going to have 200 employees on the Zoom call along with the investors. He's concerned he has to read too quickly and he's going to sound, lacking confidence, whatever. And they said, can you help the guy? And I said, of course. Send an introduction email. I'll talk with the guy. I can have a session or 2 with him and I can help him out. And they said, oh, no. You can't have an email. The pitch is tonight. The guy is making the pitch tonight. The CEO needs your help now. I said, okay, put the guy on the phone. I'll talk with him. They said, no, there's no time. The CEO is making a pitch in 2 minutes. We just need to know what to tell this guy. We're concerned that he's concerned that he's going to speak too quickly, and he's concerned that he's going to sound nervous. And he's on it 2 minutes. So I said, okay, tell him to do 2 things. I said, tell him to do 2 things, and he'll probably be fine. I said, tell him to slow down the first word of every sentence. And the other thing is double the amount of space between every sentence, and he'll be okay. And he was. They got back to me the next day. He said he was fine. And so, Carlos, here's why those 2 things work. But I should first say, over these 36 years, I must have many thousands of little fixes, adjustments that work. So whoever it is that I work with, whether it's their lighting is off, their sound quality is off, the way they speak is off, they're nervous, they're too fast, they have an accent, they have this, they have that, I can just say, great, do these 3 things, do these 2 things. You need 1 change. You just need to change this one little thing like that. And it's amazing sometimes the differences make such an impact. For this particular CEO, I said, slow down the first word of every sentence because the guy is nervous. And I can't imagine a worse time to sound nervous than if you're about to give a pitch to investors. Investors don't invest in your business. They invest in you for the most part. If you lack confidence, I think it's going to weaken your chance of getting an investment. So if he slows down the first word of every sentence, that will force him to stay calm or sound calm. It will lower his pitch, which makes him seem more confident. The guy still may be nervous. He probably is still sweating profusely. He's nervous, but he won't sound nervous. So slowing down the first word brings the pitch down, brings the energy down so he can focus, and that's great. Then the other thing I said was to leave more space between sentences. What that does is interesting. And by the way, when I first said that, one of the consultants said back to me, but he has 3 minutes. If he only has 3 minutes, you're telling him to leave more space between sentences. I said, trust me, it'll work. And here's why it works. Because when you take more break between phrases and between sentences, you give your brain a chance to think. You have a chance to catch your breath. You have a chance to think about the next thing or organize your next words. You almost get rid of the chance that you get tongue-tied, speak in circles, stumble through your words. In other words, you'll get through more content in less time, and it will be more decipherable. It's much easier to communicate your point that way. So if you make those 2 changes, for this particular guy, if he made those 2 changes, I felt it would work. it is weird that I didn't get to ever speak with the guy. Usually I have at least one session with someone, but it still worked. So yeah, there are things that work. And like you said, Carlos, I found that almost everyone is unaware of these issues. Occasionally I get on like a Zoom call with someone and I'll say, like a CEO of a company, I'll get on the Zoom call and they'll have a big picture window behind them. And you can see, it's beautiful. You can see beautiful roads and yachts going back and forth and people on the beach, wherever they're, from their beautiful home office. And I'll say, when you're on a Zoom call, do you want people to be distracted? They say, well, of course not. I say, well, then why are you in front of a window? It's completely distracting me. Right. And most of the time when I tell people things, they say, oh, yeah, that makes sense. We just don't think about these things. So my true strength is understanding human voice. For 36 years, I've studied the nuance of words, the phrasing of words, how words are put together, when to say this and when not to say that, and how to group your words, just all of the vocal stuff. Oh, my goodness, I've studied it for 36 years. Lighting and sound quality have come along with that. I would say I'm not the highest expert in the world. I know way more than just about anyone else, but occasionally I still make a call to someone and say, okay, I got a really interesting situation. And I'll ask someone like the world-renowned expert on lighting, for example, who I know quite well. I'll say, what degree lighting should someone have? Because they're in a picture window with this kind of light and that other kind of light bulb. And so I'm pretty knowledgeable in terms of lighting and sound setup and body language. And then in the speaking, that's where I really excel. So it's fun. Every day, like I said, I work with a whole bunch of different people or fly around the country and go into offices and just make sure people sound as smart as they are. I never want anyone to sound less smart than they are, because that's a shame.
Yeah. And actually we can sound even better than we are.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Brain-wide, yeah. And I actually realized that it's all about marketing, right? And positioning. And some people just, wow, that's amazing. And when they start, and eventually you realize, well, that was kind of not really what it is.
On last Wednesday, I worked with an entrepreneur on a startup. And this guy has great confidence, wonderful confidence. He comes across beautifully on screen. He's not shy of the microphone. He's not shy of the camera. He's completely comfortable, which is great. But the way he spoke, he did one thing. He kept speaking it up speak, which means every sentence goes up at the end. It sounds like this. He said his name. Hi, I'm David Goldberg. My business is at Studio, and we're doing this for this investor. And so we changed just having him resolve his sentences in one change. And everyone in this organization said like, wow, unbelievable, the difference it made. Yeah, I think he actually sounded smarter. Yeah. So you're right. You can sound even smarter than you are, which is important sometimes when you're talking with employees, or if you're giving a media interview, a press release, you're speaking at a company podcast. Yeah, that's important.
That's great. I love that. And actually, there's one thing I don't know how to voice that or verbalize that, but every time I meet you, you have like a different break the ice kind of thing. When you're presenting the first time, you have one style because it was one specific group of people. Then when we talk to each other individually, it was like a different ice-breaking style. Today was yet a different one. So how do you do that? Is that something that you plan, just like you feel the room, how people say, or this is like, okay, in this particular scenario, you do this? Because I know you're not working only on the physiology of producing the sound, like, if I look at this, or if you do like this, right? And the technical, but you also work on the content. I remember one exercise that you did was really nice, how introducing oneself without making a negative impression, or working in a positive way, presenting yourself in a stronger way. I don't know, I'm just curious how you do that. I mean, do you plan that? Do you already have like different schemas or templates for that?
No templates. It took me a long time to get comfortable in front of other people, a very long time. Yeah. I was born, you may not know this, I was born either hard of hearing or deaf, or somewhat deaf. For somewhat deaf, I guess it's hard of hearing. Yeah, just for a short period of time. And then I was an incredibly delayed speaker. Evidently, I didn't speak my first word until I was 5, and I put together my first sentence at 8. So I was super delayed. And as a result, I often don't trust my own voice. Occasionally, I get tongue-tied on a word. Sometimes I can't quite think of the word that I need. Sometimes I hear myself starting to stumble or stutter. And for all of those reasons, number one, it's super odd that I'm a voice coach, because who would think that I would become a voice coach? But I lacked the confidence. I did lack the confidence. And I've always spoken publicly for all of my 36 years. Within a year into my business, I was out there speaking. Back then, we didn't have podcasts, interestingly enough, but I was still on stages and at conferences and networking functions. I was always asked to speak, and I was always nervous, every time nervous. And maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, I was making a pretty large presentation to a group in Atlanta about, I think it was like 850 people or so. Like normal, I was nervous. And someone I know very well saw me right before I went on stage and said, "Why are you nervous?" And I said, "It's my voice." She said, "But David, you know your content so well." I said, "Oh yeah, I know." I said, "I'm not concerned about my content. I do feel that anyone can ask me anything about my area of expertise and I can give them an answer, or I'll know who to go to get an answer, a real answer, not like a made up answer, but like a real, genuine answer that it can be backed up and make sense and everything. I'm not concerned about content. I'm concerned about my voice." And this was a conference of public speakers. So I'm going on stage to talk to 850 public speakers. I don't trust my own voice. I get nervous. And so that woman who I knew said to me, "David, people fly to hear you. They pay to hear you. They applaud you. You get these emails and fan clubs and whatever." I mean, fan club sounds weird to say, but like in my little public speaking world, I get like, oh, David this, David that. And so they said, like, why, like, just go for it. And at that moment, I kind of made the decision to go for it. And so now I'm completely comfortable when I speak, and it is so much more relieving for me. Before today's podcast, I wasn't really nervous. And so when someone opens up, I'm comfortable to make a joke. And I've learned that, you know what, I trust myself now. I don't worry about myself. So if I stumble on a word, if I can't think of the next word, okay, it is what it is. Maybe people know me well enough now. I don't know. I just don't worry about it. When a conference begins, when there's an introduction, whatever it is, my opening line is just off the cuff. It is what it is. I'm comfortable enough to just be flexible and be adaptable. So no, there's no templates. There's no jokes that I think of offhand. I'm a big believer in not really asking poignant questions at the beginning of a presentation. A lot of people do that. A lot of people open up a presentation with some crazy question. Guess how many people can speak 18 words per second? I feel like, Carlos, when you ask some crazy question that no one has the answer to, all it does, it sets you apart from the audience. It's like, I have the answer, right? So I'm smarter than you. Well, why do I want to set myself apart from anyone? One of the things I tell everyone who speaks publicly, or even if it's on a podcast or a media interview one-on-one, I say you want to be along with them. You want to talk with them, not to them, you with them. Join them. Don't set yourself apart. And asking these crazy questions and showing that you're smarter than they are just means that you are setting yourself apart. So yeah, I just kind of go with it. Whatever comes out, comes out. And sometimes what comes out is completely goofy, corny, and I'm like, sorry guys, I meant the joke. Wasn't funny. Hopefully I'll do better.
There's something in the back of my mind that reminds me like 15 times. How young you started? You said like 36 years on this business. You started like with what? With 2? When you're 2 years old, when you started? Because, I mean, come on, you're just so young. It's just like amazing. You're doing this for 36 years.
Yeah, I'm 58.
Crazy.
No, I'm 58.
Wow. You gotta, share your skincare or whatever you're doing because this is working amazingly. That's great. Okay, I have so many questions for you, and I know our time is limited. Before I get to other questions, I know people can read and follow the links that we have, but the people that are just listening to this, what is the best way to get hold of you, to get in contact with you? Like LinkedIn, your site, just tell people. What is the best way to, hire you as a coach or a speaking gig? What's the best way?
HireMe.com. No, kidding. My email is the best way to get to me. My family knows I cannot end the day before I clear my emails. So if you email me, I'm going to see it. My email.
I notice you're just so good. It's just like super fast.
I'm determined not to fall behind. That's the rabbit hole. You fall behind a little bit, it gets worse and worse. Which, by the way, and I will get back to my email address in a moment. The rabbit hole happens when people speak publicly. Once someone becomes nervous, once someone trips on a word, they stumble. Yeah, they start turning a little red, and then they realize, I think I might look red to everyone else, which makes them redder. And then they start sweating. And like every part of their body that should be dry is now wet, and every part of their body that wet is now dry. Like it's no good. Yeah, you just have to accept and just, I know, move on and remember that we're all human. And interestingly, to that point, and I still will get to my email, when you fumble in front of other people and when you are comfortable with it and you acknowledge it rather than trying to hide it, yeah, you bring yourself together even more. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's
people
true.
realize, hey, you're human. So if I stumble on a word, you're okay. The guy's it's a regular person. Exactly. My email is david@edgestudio.com. I'll repeat that. david@edgestudio.com.
Thank you. If you're listening to this, you're seeing this, get in contact with Dave. He already said he's going to answer your email. I mean, you're just hooked into his time and his agenda. You're so generous with this, Dave. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Okay. A great part of our public or the audience here are strategic leaders or leaders that want to become every time, every day, every year, more and more strategic. So we're talking about executives, entrepreneurs, business owners, board members, advisors, and of course, a lot of other people that are come together. Everybody's welcome here, right? I never intended originally to start doing this in a global scale, and I found it so much fun, so much. I'm just doing what you said. Just recognize that I'm making mistakes, and that's to me easy because English is not my first language, obviously, right? I'm a Brazilian. But what I want to get into this with you here is you have people that really need to communicate well. And I learned this like a while ago. Becoming a leader, you need to be good at selling ideas and concepts. You need to be good at teaching people, how to grow, how to develop themselves. And of course, you have to be a great influencer as a communicator. Otherwise, you're not getting anywhere. To be a good teacher, you need to communicate well. To be a good seller, a salesman, a salesperson, you definitely need to, dominate the language and master that. What is getting in the way of leaders, of executives to really master the communication, public speaking, these engagements? And so would it be so kind to speak a little bit on that?
It's one word, and you said it earlier. They are unaware. There are so many CEOs who are terrific. They are amazing, to use your word, and they are great and they're comfortable in front of their team, but they're not necessarily as strong as they could be in front of potential customers. So when it comes to a big customer presentation, that's where they go awry. The study has found, and by the way, I'm not part of the study, but I've read this in multiple places, that when you speak effectively, you can be 5 times more effective. That is impactful. Even if this number is a bit exaggerated, even if it's 3 times as effective, you know what? Even twice as effective. My goodness, what a difference it makes. And so what I focus on is helping anyone I work with understand how to tailor what they do to all the different mediums out there. Because in today's world, there are so many opportunities to get out there and speak. Podcasts, social media videos, LinkedIn videos, classes, seminars, workshops, big, small presentations. There are authors and CEOs who write books now and narrate their own audiobooks, and they're on, as I mentioned earlier, podcasts. And oh my goodness, there's so many opportunities and on so many different platforms. I think this also came up earlier through Zoom, online. So on camera, on mic, on stage, online meetings, in the boardroom, you have to be adaptable. And so there are lots of CEOs who are great in one area. Oh my goodness, they can get in front of a boardroom and they win over everyone. But you put them when they go to record their audiobook, they sound terrible and they weaken their professional image. Or maybe they're great at recording their audiobook. Maybe they're comfortable one-on-one or just one in the microphone. But then you put them in front of a stage of 300 people on a keynote speech and they're not all that good. So it's figuring out where someone is lacking, where their weak spots are, which there are easy ways to simulate these areas. And we do that typically in 20 minutes or half hour. It doesn't take that long. Figure out the weak spots and then just coach, come up with these tailored little vocal adjustments, speaking adjustments, or lighting adjustments or sound quality adjustments. I worked with a chair of a massive organization, the head chair, just a huge, huge organization. I don't know if I should say what organization it is right now, but this guy is so good on screen, fantastic on screen. He's so good with his words, but the microphone he used made him sound so distant. For me to kind of replicate what he sounded like, I would have to kind of walk back about 20 feet from here and then kind of talk, and you hear like the echo and everything. And that's just because of the microphone that he was using. Sometimes it is simple as me saying, you know what, dude, you just need to swap microphones. But then you have to know what kind of microphone to use. And actually, I'll talk about microphones in a minute because it's really interesting. But by changing the microphone, made all the difference because now he sounded commanding. Now his smarts came through. He didn't sound smart through Zoom. In person, amazing. In a classroom, amazing. On stage, amazing. But when he was on Zoom, terrible, or any online meeting. So about 4 weeks ago, or maybe 5 weeks ago, the president of a company asked me to get what microphone I suggest for them. They've been looking at Amazon. David, I found this microphone. It's only $30. Do you think it's good? I said, I don't know. I don't know how your room sounds. You know, it's interesting with microphones. You need to purchase a microphone based upon the acoustics of your room, not so much the acoustics or the sound of your voice. And so I wrote to her and I said, let me just think about this. And I ended up writing sort of an article. Like it took me an hour. I ended up spending an hour, probably an hour on this. What goes into selecting a microphone? And I was thinking about the positives and negatives of all of the different microphones. So here are some that I talked about. When someone is on stage, a celebrity, an author, a CEO, anyone, an executive, and they're giving a keynote speech, very often they're nervous. So holding a microphone in your hand is relieving. It's like it's something to grasp onto. Yeah. Yeah. So it's really good. So you think, okay, someone is nervous, give them that handheld microphone. But inevitably, if they're not trained, while they're talking, their hand goes away from the mouth, back to the mouth. Yeah. So you hear some words and then they get really soft like this. And then you hear them again and then they get really soft. So that's hard. And they have to remember to keep the hand like that the whole time. That's hard. So do they want that added pressure when they're on stage? Maybe not. So then maybe you put a microphone at a lectern. Well, that seems great. Now you can stand still, but now you're standing still. That's terrible when you're on stage, right? Yeah, you should be moving left and right and stuff. And if you put it at, even a handheld, a stage microphone is bad enough. At a lectern, I find that most people will kind of grasp on, I'm trying to do this on my Zoom camera, they'll grasp on to the sides of the lectern and they're kind of hunched over. And then you don't even see their underside. Like it's boring. So another option is a lapel microphone, or also called a lavalier microphone, a microphone you put like on your shirt here or, something like here. But that could be really great. Except I found that a lot of people wear those, but because they can't see the microphone, they forget that it's there and they don't really trust it. And so as they're speaking, they get louder and louder, and they're eventually talking like this, and you realize like they're like shouting at everyone in the audience rather than connecting with one person. So like I went through probably 10 different kinds of microphones. There are shotgun microphones, directional microphones. I went through all of these different kinds of microphones, and I wrote this like I said, an hour. I should do something with this report. Maybe I'll publish it on our website or something. But there are choices to be made, and those choices can have a big impact on how you sound. Having the wrong microphone in your office when you Zoom or having poor lighting does make you look like that low budget ad, and you immediately lose credibility. Immediately, right? People make up their minds within a fraction of a second, whether they like you, whether they can trust you, whether they want to do business with you. That comes within a fraction of a second before a partner even opens their mouth. We make these decisions, and that is coming typically on an online meeting in most cases these days. So it's coming from the lighting and the sound quality. So these things have to be done right. And the other analogy, which I also thought of recently, is headshots. So many executives have a headshot on their website. They probably hire a professional photographer. They have a nice headshot, a stage, just that kind of shot like that. And they put thought into how they look because that image of them is the image of their business. That's their professional image. So why wouldn't you want that same professional image when you're in front of customers on Zoom or Google Meets or whatever online connectivity you're on? That stuff is important. So when you're dealing with a potential partner or potential customer, you need to look and sound sharp. So yeah.
That's awesome. I remember one day that I was in a online workshop or something, and I could bring guests. So I brought one guest, and the person told me, "Hey, your setup is better than the facilitator." Because I'm kind of, I'm super nerdy, right? I like to invest in those things. Of course, there's always a long-term, like back office kind of story here for you that are listening and watching this. He did it so good. He gave me so much. And I know it's not, top-notch quality yet, but it's getting much better thanks to Dave. So thank you very much. And
you're looking good. You look and sound really good. And that's so good when you're a podcaster,
There's one thing that I want to comment, and I don't know if that works with other people that, support as well. One thing I realize is, I'm not sure I'll be able to speak this in English properly, but it's say in English, it's just like desensibilizing the brain. It's just like you do something so many times that you just don't care anymore. Because I do this for, 8 years. I've been doing this for 8 years. And I still suck big time in many moments, many occasions. And when like you said, the brain is right, it's not mine. And it make me happy because you said you're doing this 36 years, and 6 years ago you have like an alignment moment when you could be just yourself. It took me like forever, like hundreds, if not thousands of hours of recording and doing lives to actually get comfortable with my own mistakes. And one thing I realized that I was actually getting to this when I had a public speaking engagement last year. And it was World Trade Center here in São Paulo. It was like a decent event for me. I had, bigger audiences before. It was like about 200 to 300 people, and I was speaking to them. And I realized I was so relaxed. I was just enjoying the moment and laughing and being playful, and people loved it. And I say, well, I'm kind of starting enjoying this now. And even though I don't get super nervous before, but I think I got in touch with my mortality in a deeper level. It's just like, you know what, this is just let's have fun. Let's share what's important. Make sure you have the things, of course, proper materials, the slides are compatible, all the thing, right? But I really got into this. And the question is, how do you accelerate this process for people to do this?
Great question. Wow.
Yeah.
I would caution anyone to not wait 30 years like I did. You are so comfortable on Zoom that it's fun to have a conversation with you because you can lean back and sit forward and move your hands and you're alive and you're personable, and that stuff is so important.
I have a secret. I have back pain. I have to keep moving.
Yeah. I keep moving a lot, like moving side to side because I'm at a standing desk. And I used to feel the necessity to always say okay, guys, I'm sorry about the waving because I'm at a standing desk. I don't even worry about it anymore. I figure people either realize or whatever it is. So I haven't mentioned that. I mean, I'm mentioning it now only because of the example, but typically I don't mention it. But to the question, how does someone get so comfortable? I would caution anyone to not appear comfortable until they truly are an expert in what it is that they're talking about. Because when you are comfortable in your subject matter, I believe that people trust you more. So if you don't know your subject matter and you portray that you are super comfortable, then people will trust you. And if you're giving wrong information, that's a shame. That's not optimal. I think a lot of it comes from, well, I was going to say trusting yourself, but that's the question. How do you trust yourself? I have to think about that. I don't know the answer to that. That's funny because earlier I said, I think I know the answer to all content, in my field, but I don't know the answer to that. It is about trusting. Maybe it's about realizing, I have an idea. It may be allowing yourself to recognize that people, your audience, will appreciate you more, will empathize with you more, will trust you more when they know that you are a human being. When this came up earlier. So a stumble is okay. And in fact, to that note, I think about bloopers on TV. Sometimes if you watch the bloopers on TV, they show that the best actors in the world make the same mistake 20 times in a row. All they do is laugh. They joke about it. Oh my goodness, I got to stop drinking before I go acting next time, whatever. They have some crazy thing to say. It's something else I think a lot about. This is something I tell probably 90 or 95% of the people who I work with. So I do this multiple times a day. I tell people to anticipate the questions that they will constantly be asked, the questions they know they will be asked, and come up with well-crafted responses that are rehearsed. You're going to be asked, where are you from? Or why did you start that business? Or what do you do? Or tell me about the business. How long have you had the business? What does the business, what are your goals for the business? If you can recognize or anticipate some questions that you will be asked, you're going to be asked certain questions. And if you want to come across looking great, then you need to practice those answers, write the answers, well-crafted answers, rehearse them, do what you can. Also, rehearse an answer for when you mess up. If you mess up, if you stumble, and what's going to happen at some point, have a well-crafted answer, something you can say for that particular audience. So if the audience is very informal, that might be the great time to say, my goodness, I got to stop drinking before I'm interviewed. And maybe this is not the audience for that. And now you have a different audience, or rather a different audience, so you have a different answer. So think ahead of what to do when things go wrong. In fact, further to that point, something that I do talk about quite often is making sure that you are okay with stumbles. And I actually have people rehearse stumbles. I actually have people pretending to give a keynote speech completely mess up. Have people run through PowerPoint presentations when the slide completely intentionally goes wrong. What do? Practice that. Practice recovering for that. What do you do when the audio doesn't work? When the sound doesn't work? I worked with someone yesterday. Was it yesterday? No, Friday. It must have been Friday of last week. They could not get their audio in the beginning of this PowerPoint presentation. And they fumbled. They were red. None of it was good. They completely weakened their self-image. They lost their credibility. And so rehearse for that, practice for that.
Excellent.
I think so. When you're ready, when you're prepared for the worst. In fact, finally, I can put it into words. When you are prepared for the worst, then I think you have more confidence to go forward. Which means, as a public speaker, you should prepare for hecklers, prepare for the lights to stop working, prepare for your screen to stop working, prepare for your to get a cough, to stumble on a word, and be okay with it. Know what to do.
Outstanding. Dave, thank you very much. This
My
was
pleasure.
great. That was awesome. I could hear you talk for hours or days. I told you before, and that was awesome. But I know that our time is limited and we need to go on with the other activities. So thank you very much. I really appreciate your coming here, sharing your knowledge, and you that are listening to us or watching this, just get in contact with Dave. He'll answer your email. Thank you.
Carlos, it was great seeing you as always. You do such a great job. And like I said, you sound great, you look great, you come across really well. You should be an inspiration for other podcasters and anyone out there who is in front of an audience, just looking and doing their thing really well. So thank you.